Okay, we are recording.
Okay.
Hello, Mimi.
Hello.
So, Mimi, we have not coached before, but we just talked a couple of days ago. And can you tell me, in these 2 days, what has gone especially well for you?
Um, actually, I think I am making progress in my work in my new book. I um, I've been I've been dawdling at coffee shops, which for some reason to me is a very magical experience. I don't know if it's something in the tea or something they do over there, but when I get trapped in that environment, I find that I focus really well, especially at this point where I don't need a real computer. Because since I have a giant desktop instead of a laptop, I usually work on my iPad,
Oh,
which is,
wow.
not the most convenient way to work on a big document, but
Right,
fine for brainstorming and notes. So,
right.
anyway, it seems to be working. Um, and I think I have come up with sort of a, for lack of a better word, synopsis of what I think may be the basis for the outline.
Wow.
So and that happened in the last 2 days.
Oh, well, that is a
Along
big
with a
thing.
lot of grisly movie watching.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, so we have 30 minutes together today. What would be a great thing that you would really love to come away with?
Um, I think the biggest thing I battle is a sense of ever being done, that anything's good enough. I think that's my my biggest weakness or challenge or thing that I would like to get better at. I don't know if anybody ever gets totally over that. Maybe they do. Um, I've known people who were somewhat psychotic who did not feel that way. but I think for me that's a challenge because I've always kind of felt like to be validated, you have to have a master's degree, which I've wanted to do for years, but just never really had the time to do it. And now that I have the time to do it, I just after 20 years of paying private school tuition, I think I'm done with that. I think we're both done with that.
Yes.
Kind of need to save up for our old age or something. So,
Right.
um, uh, I guess it's just an insecurity.
And this, when you say that a sense of being done, if you had a sense of being done, what would that do for you?
Um, that's an interesting question. Um, uh, I think it would give me more confidence sending work out. I mean, I'm just sending out a book for the first time. And, unfortunately, the process is that you send your book away to these editors and agents, and you don't hear from them for months. So it's a long wait. And during that time, it's easy to convince yourself that what you've sent them sucks. So
Right.
I guess if I had a little more confidence about it, maybe I would just, believe that the book is going to go somewhere, and like Harry Potter, the 87th time is the charm.
Right. So when you say that you want this confidence in sending work out and the sense of being done, in terms of our work together in this time, what would you like to have at the end of this time?
Um, I guess, uh, what would I like to have? I guess I would like to have, uh, maybe a way or a structure to feel more confident. I don't know what that is,
Hmm.
but if there's anything I could do to work on that, You know, I worked in advertising for so many years. I'm embarrassed to say how many, and I achieved a certain level of confidence there, where I always felt like I knew whether something was good or not. You know, I mean, you're always working with clients, so there are a lot of collaborators, and you may not agree with those collaborators have to say, but you know, I always had a sense of what was good and what wasn't good, and felt like I really knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in this new world, where should I be lucky enough, we'll have collaborators. I'm fine with that. I'm very good at working, you know. Um, I'm very good with the idea of the rewrite and listening to what people have to say. And, you know, my God, I once worked on a mascara ad for 9 months, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm okay with that. I just want to be okay with feeling like what I'm doing, like my judgment is okay. I'd like to feel better about my own judgment of my own work.
And in terms of feeling better about your judgment of your own work, what do you envision? What kind of thing could you come away with at the end of this conversation that might help you?
Maybe a way to, I don't know, either be able to look at it with fresh eyes or some kind of way to evaluate it on my own that doesn't necessarily involve, I don't know, I have not had luck with the critique group thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently tried an online critique group and, just didn't find it helpful. I mean, it's always helpful to hear, you know, if people have commonalities, but I don't really feel like I need that kind of picayune stuff. You know, I would prefer bigger stuff. I don't know. I'm being completely inarticulate now.
Well,
but these are such hard questions.
But if you could think of a way to evaluate your work on your own that would help you feel more confident.
Yes.
What would that give you?
I think that would just give me a little more peace that what I'm doing is worthwhile. And if I work at it long enough and hard enough, I'll be able to create a piece of work that I feel is in some way significant, whether it ever, does that for anybody else.
And I'm curious.
I want to feel like my time isn't wasted.
Mm-hmm. And if your time isn't wasted, what is your time?
Did I lose you? Oh, no, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. If your time isn't wasted, what is it?
I guess just if it isn't wasted,
what would be the good version of that?
The good version of that would be that I could tell the stories that I want to tell, and somebody out there would actually receive that information and have it change their perception a little bit about the world for the better.
And just to really dig into that for just one brief moment, why does that matter to you so much?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Why does that matter to you so much?
Well, that might get into the whole family dynamics. But have a kind of a genius brother who, um, was always kind of held up as the genius brother. And I think it was difficult for both my other brother and I living with this. And so there's a certain part of me that has always been very competitive and probably trying to, um, to in some way compete with that. Mm-hmm. Even though I had a very successful career in advertising, it's still advertising.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you could successfully compete and have this piece that what you're doing is worthwhile, in terms of your identity, your sense of yourself, what would that do for your sense of who you are?
Oh, it would just be great. It really would. I think it would just give me a certain sense of peace about that part of myself that I think I'm always trying to get and maybe not getting there. Mm-hmm.
So
I think I maybe got close to that when I was in New York, but ever since I left New York, I feel like have been living my life more for my family than myself. And this is the first time I've kind of gotten back to doing what I want to do.
And if we could spend a little time working towards this great sense of peace, by finding a way for you to evaluate your work on your own so that you could get this sense of ever being done. How would you, during our conversation, how might you know that this way to evaluate your work on your own is good, that you have that? Like when we're talking at the end of our conversation, if you have a way or some ways, how might you know that this was useful to you?
Well, I'm very good with a plan. I'm very good with, for lack of a better word, assignments. Mm-hmm. When I work a very structured day. I decide what I'm going to be doing that day or the day before, and I try to hold to that commitment because otherwise I can drift. Go on Facebook half the day, whatever. It's very important for me to. I want to get my 10,000 hours in.
Right.
I want to maintain a certain sense of discipline. So if I had yet another assignment, I feel like I would do that.
Okay, so if you have this way to evaluate it on your own, what will give you a clue if we're working through some ways? What will give you a clue that this way or these ways might be helpful to you?
I guess when you hear something that you hadn't thought of before, mm-hmm. It kind of sets off a little light bulb or recognition that what you're, it's just like when I'm writing and I come up with a solution to a problem that I've been having. It just makes me happy.
Okay. So if in our time together, we work towards a way or structure that you can get that sense of ever being done, that you can, a way to evaluate it on your own so that you can get this sense of peace, and you'll know that because you'll feel that light bulb feeling. Would that be a good use of our time together?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to just suggest a thought of experiment that we fast forward to maybe a week from now, and you are thinking about this piece of work that you have completed, and you absolutely have this incredibly strong sense of it being done. Can you just take a moment and think about what that feels like?
Uh-oh, you're dropping out.
Okay, sorry. It's can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine that it's a week from now and you've completed a piece of work and you have this really strong sense of it being done and this sense of peace. This really strong sense of peace. Tell me when you can really imagine that.
Hmm. You know, I find that often that kind of feeling comes from outside approval.
Really?
And it's hard to imagine me giving myself that kind of approval.
Has there ever been a time in your life when you have given yourself that kind of approval?
Yes, I mean, I think I did when I was working in New York. But then again, I was getting a lot of outside approval at the same time.
Hmm.
So, I was very well respected at the time. So, if you're getting a lot of outside approval, and sometimes you don't get your way, but it's right, you have a lot of that old outside approval, I think, to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it in the absence of outside approval um, is tougher.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, so actually, I'm going to invite you to imagine that you have completed a piece of work that is very important to you.
That is what?
That maybe it's a week from now and you've completed a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And you know completely that it is done. You just know this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I lost you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
After you know completely.
Okay. You know completely that it is done. You just feel it.
Hello?
Hello? Is this dropping out?
Uh-oh.
Wait, I'm going to move. Hang on. I'm going to move.
Are you there?
Yeah, sorry about this. I'm going to move.
Wait.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm moving to my phone is being weird. Thank you for being so patient with my many technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Okay,
The world is full of technical difficulties.
The world is full of technical difficulties. Okay, so imagine what it. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Take a minute and imagine that you have finished some important piece of work. What might that piece of work be that's really important to you?
Well, I mean, I did just finish an important piece of work. That's the novel that I just finished.
Right.
Although I don't think it's necessarily an important novel, but I did finish it.
Okay. But picture this new thinking of this new piece that you're working on, this new book.
Uh-huh.
Imagine yourself, you're going to spend a month and you're going to do the most incredible work you've ever done. You just are. The most incredible work you've ever done. And you are going to, at the end of this month, you're going to shut down your computer and feel this amazing sense that it really is done because some outside force has come in and guided you, and you just know that it is totally done.
Uh-huh.
If you imagine yourself in that situation, what do you notice?
Um, well, it's kind of hard to picture because I I I assume it's going to take me a couple of years to write the book.
Okay.
So, and spending a couple of years on it, I'm sure I'll rewrite it many, many times.
Well,
But
let's
I guess
picture
the
it.
best that I could hope for in a month would be the outline.
Well,
So
and
that would be pushing it, but
well, how about if we picture that it is 2 years from now
okay.
and you have been on fire. You have done every possible thing to make this book absolutely the best it could possibly be. You have you have looked at it with fresh eyes, you've evaluated it on your own, it meets your own standards, and you think it is great. Imagine yourself looking at this book. What do you notice?
That is genius.
It's
Uh,
genius. Okay, well, tell me more about it's being genius. What is that like?
well, if I really wrote a book that I felt like was my best possible work, and I really had done everything um, to make it great, and I had confidence in it. Um, I I think that that would give me the strength and my ability to just make a life out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is. I think I need a win. I guess I need something that makes me feel like I can just keep going and going and going with this.
And so when you feel that sense of genius, of confidence and strength and ability, just take a moment and really experience that feeling. What do you notice when you feel that?
Well, I guess a certain cockiness,
Mm-hmm.
and
What does it feel like in your body?
strengthening. Invigorating.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And when you hold this invigorated, strong feeling, and you know that you did everything you could, what exactly did you do?
Worked really hard.
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's really hard work, and I think taking it seriously and putting in the work is, when you look back and you say, "Wow, I spent 3 years doing that." Um, Putting in the work in and of itself is very satisfying. When I was younger and really wanted to do this, I didn't have the patience or the energy or the I don't know what you call it to put in that much work. I just had other things I wanted to do.
And, and it,
And being able to put in the work, um, there's something very empowering about it.
mm-hmm. And what does putting in the work mean to you? Like, what does that actually entail?
Well, it means, sitting down and writing for, a certain quantity amount of time every day to, um, to do things to improve my work, which for me often involves, I find conferences very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to work toward going to a really, a conference, like Sewanee, or I don't know. There's a bunch of like really big writing conferences that you have to basically submit to get
Mm-hmm.
into.
Mm-hmm.
And
In terms
yeah,
of,
I'd like to feel confident enough to do something like that.
yeah, and in terms of your developing a way to evaluate your work, what part might going to those conferences like Sewanee play in that way to evaluate your work?
Oh well, I mean, there certainly would be some outside evaluation, because I think most of them are at least a week long, and you do, workshops, real workshops. Um, so that would be good to
Mm-hmm.
sort of see if I could survive in that milieu,
Well, let's say,
and feel good there and confident there and feel that my work is strong.
well, let's
That
imagine for the
that would
sake
be
of this
great.
let's imagine for the sake of this experiment that in as part of your strategy for developing your own self mode of evaluating your own work, that you did apply to these super competitive programs like Sewanee, and you did have the strength to get through them. Um, how might that fit into your developing your own way to evaluate your work?
Um, I think it's the work that I brought there was, um, if I felt good about it while I
Mm-hmm.
was, in workshops, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I was being absolutely destroyed by people because of the garbage I brought. I think that in and of itself would make me feel. I mean, because you are criticizing your own work every day, or I'm criticizing my own work every day when I sit down. If I back up a paragraph, I'm evaluating it.
Right.
So, if I could, I guess, if I could get outside validation that, you know, that I'm that I'm doing okay, then I could be more confident in my ability to do it.
And in terms of, I mean, I'm definitely hearing a thread of like outside versus inside. How
Yeah.
how how important is it to you to have this way of evaluating it on your own, completely without external feedback?
Well, I'm beginning to see that maybe that is possible. That having some kind of outside evaluation is, is important. I mean, in a perfect world, if I could find a really good critique group, um, I think that would be helpful. It's just that I'm just not the type of person who can give somebody a chapter right after I wrote it.
Right.
It's just not my working style. I prefer to get things as good as I can get it, and then have somebody look at it.
What
I don't want them to tell me the things I already know.
what might you do to get it as good as you could get it, and then find a really good critique group? What might be some ways to do that?
Well, that's back to putting in the work. When I did the last book, I did a very extensive outline, too extensive. It was 70 pages. It was ridiculous. But it was my first book. So I did this 70-page outline. And then, I had tons of notes and stories and things that I had written sort of randomly. And I fit those into the outline. And, and then I started writing. And then after I finished, I just started back at the beginning. And I did that many times before I let anybody see it. When
And
I started my second project, I came up with some new strategies. Yeah, in that I did like a character Bible, and I did other things to help that first process be a little more organized and easier and thought through.
so with this third book, when
Mhm.
we picture that time 2 years down the line, And imagine that you used all of the strategies that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
plus throwing in Sewanee or a couple of other competitive writers conferences.
Uh-huh.
What might be a couple of other ways that you could bump up your evaluation process even further?
Well, I do read books on writing, um, and I think that's been very helpful. Um, and I get a lot of newsletters and things like that. They're always kind of a hodgepodge because some of the things are things and some of the things are things that really make you think about it.
Hmm. And
You
what
know, I
what
mean,
what role might that play in finding a way to evaluate your work for yourself?
um, well, I mean, uh, a lot of them give you very practical strategies. They say look out for this and look out for that, and here's an idea, or did you think about this, or are your characters doing all this? I think that's why I find workshops helpful too, because they really give you those very practical strategies, which which have, have been enormously helpful.
Hmm. Well, we
And
have
once I get one of those strategies and internalize it, then hopefully I'm using it all the time.
we have about 5 minutes left. If you
Okay.
could summarize in a sentence all the strategies that you've thought of so far to, or maybe two sentences, to move you towards having a way to evaluate your work on your own, what have you thought of so far?
Um, Conferences, books, uh, uh, working toward having an outside critique group of some sort. Uh, Going out on the web and seeing what people are talking about. Books. I use books a lot. I use books a lot to solve problems. Um, other novels.
Mm-hmm.
I have different novels that I use for different problems. And, um, I find when I get stuck or if I don't know how to solve something, I will read parts of those novels and I find them almost as teachers.
Mm-hmm. And so integrating all of that in a way to evaluate yourself that is internal as well as external, what might you tell yourself?
I guess that this is a long, big process that I need to have patience with that process, and um, that I think for a lot of years my wanting to be instantly good at this was what kept me from doing it. So now that I've gotten over the hurdle of having to be instantly good at it, um, I think I just have to keep fighting through and keep working hard
Mm-hmm.
and work harder.
Okay. And in terms of, if you could think of one thing that you could say to yourself to give you that sense of ever being done, what might that be?
Well, when my son was little, and he was 5 years old, he very much wanted to play Pokemon. His little preschool friend was sort of, was the first one to get a Game Boy, and he was a little semi-expert at it. And he was very frustrated, and he would cry, and he would get upset that he wasn't doing this instantly. But he really wanted to play Pokemon, so he just kept working at it, working at it, working at it. And finally, he became like the Pokemon master at Wagon Wheel. So after that, for years and years, and we have even said it to him in his adulthood, once there was a boy who wanted to play Pokemon. And I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my once there was a girl who,
Once I was a girl who what?
who wanted to write a really good book, and she did it. I think I'm.
Once I was a girl who wanted to write a really good book, and I did it. What might happen if you said that to yourself?
Well, if I did it, then I would have the confidence to do it again. So, I mean, I think, yeah, I think just doing it, just getting it done, and getting some good feedback, it would be a lot.
What in
that feeling.
In the next couple of days, what are 2 or 3 really small steps you might take to move you further toward this?
Well, like I said, I did have a couple of good days where I felt like I was, starting to coagulate the story. So if I could, if I could just keep moving toward that, toward having in my mind an idea of beginning, middle, and end. Not, of course, the whole book, but just a good sense of the beginning, middle, and end.
What might you specifically do in the next couple days?
What can I specifically do?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Passover is going to put a major wrench in that. But,
right. Maybe the next 5 or 6 days.
Well, no, it's just that I'm going to San Diego.
Oh,
right. And I have to do some cooking tomorrow. But I think what I can do is maybe organize all the stuff I've done so far, all the notes and stray character details, and I have a tendency to start out by just sort of fitting stuff out, just free range going out there. And I think maybe if I got that organized, that would give me a sense of accomplishment, since I am a bit OCD. So organization feels better.
Okay. And what's one more thing that you might do in terms of building this way to evaluate your work on your own?
Maybe just not be so hard on myself at the beginning. Because I think the beginning requires more openness and less hard criticism.
And
I think the criticism can be a little, can stop you, can block you if you come down on yourself too much right at the beginning.
And what might you do to remind yourself of that?
I don't know, maybe just think about it before I sit down to write.
Is there any kind of...
Today I'm going to be open-minded and just let it flow.
Is there any kind of... Sometimes people write something down, or they have like a physical thing near them.
Well, my son years ago gave me a bird cat. And the Buddha cat is on my desk. I could assign her some verbal commands, I think.
Okay. So, of all the things that we covered just now, what was the most significant for you?
Um, I think maybe the last thing to realize that in order to evaluate my work, the work has to get done, and at the beginning of the work, that means not starting the evaluation too early. In other words, you know, I think maybe I should just try to get through the first draft without evaluating, and then evaluate.
Well, thank you, Mimi. I thank you for sharing your process. I have to say that I got the chills when you said once there was a girl who wanted to write a really good book and she did it. It really did. It gave me the chills. I mean, the writing process, especially in a book like what you're writing, is it's like a holy process. And it's really, I mean, just hearing about it, I'm honored by your courage. So thank you for having thank you for having this conversation with me and for putting up with my many technical glitches. Wait, I'm going to turn off this recording.